NATO to hold annual nuclear exercise despite Russian threats. UN seeks better preparation for future heat waves. Oceans getting warmer at 5 Hiroshima-sized nuclear bombs per second. Portugal will enact taxes on personal crypto capital gains. Almost 1/3 of elderly in Hong Kong felt lonely. US election offices tighten security with bulletproof glass. Singapore's life expectancy falls for first time since 1957. Easter Island fire damages some statues.
Hello, I'm Wade Lee. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It is Wednesday, October 12th, and here are your top stories. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said on Tuesday that NATO will push ahead with long-planned nuclear exercise next week. The exercise, dubbed Steadfast Noon, is held annually and usually run for about 1 week. It involves fighter jets capable of carrying nuclear warheads but does not involve any live bombs. Conventional jets and surveillances and refueling aircraft also routinely take part. The main part of the maneuver would be held more than 1,000 kilometers from Russia.
This is the second time Russia has taken Ukrainian territory by force.
On the eve of a meeting of NATO defense ministers in Brussels, Stoltenberg said, "It would send a very wrong signal if we suddenly now canceled a routine, long-time planned exercise because of the war in Ukraine. That would be absolutely the wrong signal to send." He also said, "If we now created the grounds for any misunderstandings, miscalculations in Moscow about our willingness to protect and defend all allies, we would increase the risk of escalation." 14 of the 30 NATO member countries will be involved in the exercise.
According to a report prepared by the UN Humanitarian Aid Agency, Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society issued Monday, 38 heat waves accounted for the deaths of more than 70,000 people worldwide from 2010 to 2019. They urge people and governments to do more to beat the heat by preparing better for heat waves like recent ones in Sacramento, California, Somalia, and Sichuan, China, that could take many lives in the future.
On the checklist of steps, the organizations say some humanitarian groups are testing the rollout of emergency housing, green roofs, cooling centers, and changes to school calendars to mitigate the impact of heat waves, which many scientists say have become more frequent because of human-made climate change. Beyond that, governments were encouraged to boost early warning systems about heat waves and give more training and funding to local responders who often are first on site when a heat wave hits.
According to a study conducted in 2019, our oceans are warming at the rate of 5 Hiroshima-sized nuclear bombs per second. The study showed that the oceans are now heating and the water temperature is reaching the highest temperature ever recorded. A team of 14 scientists analyzed the data from 1950 to 2019 and observed the temperature from the surface of the ocean down to 2,000 meters deep. They found that from 2015 to 2019, these years were recorded as the hottest 5 years when compared to the past decades.
According to Li Jingcheng, the paper's lead author, the average temperature of the oceans in 2019 was 0.075 degrees Celsius, which is higher than the average temperature from 1981 to 2010. After the calculations, in the last 25 years, we have added a very high amount of energy in the oceans. The amount of energy is equivalent of the total energy released by 3.6 billion Hiroshima-sized nuclear bomb explosions. It means that over the past 25 years, the energy in the world's oceans are increasing by roughly 5 Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs every second.
While Portugal already taxed capital gains on cryptocurrency holdings derived from professional or business activities, individual citizens were exempt. However, a budget draft proposal submitted to Parliament by Portugal's Finance Minister, Fernando Medina, called for a levy of 28% on capital gains from cryptocurrency assets held by individuals for less than a year. Gains on cryptos held for a period of longer than a year would remain unaffected.
Citizens, corporations, NGOs, universities, research
Last
centers,
May, Portugal's finance minister, Fernando Medina, told Parliament that cryptocurrencies would soon be subject to taxation. That'll bring the less wealthy Western European country in line with many other nations around the globe, including Australia, the United Kingdom, and the US. According to his plan, proceeds from the insurance of cryptocurrencies and crypto mining would also be considered income and subject to taxes. Still, the draft proposal must go through the full legislative process before becoming law.
I always needed time on my own. I never thought I'd be here.
I take your blessings with your heartaches too. It's so easy and so wonderful to know it's you.
学习，一切从今天开始。FUNDAY 英语。
Researchers at the University of Hong Kong found that almost a third of elderly residents in Hong Kong have said that they felt lonely during the city's fifth coronavirus wave, with some also reporting a decline in their mental well-being as the pandemic heads into its third year. Project manager Kwok YY urged the family and friends of elderly residents, as well as the wider community, to provide active care to help seniors deal with emotional distress.
According to the survey, 29% of respondents said they felt lonely during the fifth wave, which began in December of last year. Some 30% of interviewees also told researchers they lived alone. This study showed some 14% and 12% of interviewees showed signs of depression and anxiety, respectively, while only 8.4% and 7.4% were placed in the same categories in 2020. The researchers called for authorities to provide more services and activities that met the physical and psychological needs of elderly residents.
According to Reuters' report, spurred by a deluge of threats and intimidating behavior by supporters upset over former President Donald Trump's 2020 election defeat, the November 8 midterms election in the U.S. have seen some election offices across the United States fortify their operations. A Reuters survey of 30 election offices found that 15 have enhanced security in various ways, from installing panic buttons to hiring extra security guards to holding active shooters and de-escalation training.
Reuters reported that at an election office in Flagstaff, Arizona, bulletproof glass was installed and voters needed to press a buzzer to enter. In Tallahassee, Florida, election workers will count ballots in a building that has been newly toughened with walls made of super strong fiber Kevlar. In addition to adding Kevlar walls, the Leon County, Florida election office has held active shooter trainings for its workers, installed bulletproof and bomb-resistant glass, and invested in security cameras and video file storage.
Data from Singapore's Department of Statistics showed Singapore's life expectancy fell for the first time in records that began in 1957. Life expectancy at birth was 83.5 years in 2021, a drop of around 2 months compared with 83.7 years in 2019. Life expectancy for the women was 85.9 years and 81.1 years for men. The department said the drop mirrored a trend seen in the U.S., where life expectancy suffered its largest 2-year decline in a century, as COVID-19 and the epidemic of opioids overdose took their toll on the population.
The media said life expectancy is calculated based on mortality rates over a 3-year period. Life expectancy at birth doesn't predict a person's actual lifespan, but gives an indication of the average longevity of Singapore's population. Singapore's Statistics Department said higher mortality rates caused by excess deaths during the pandemic had caused life expectancy to fall in 2020 and 2021. There were 2,490 excess deaths in Singapore from January 2020 to June 2022, of which almost 60% were directly caused by COVID-19.
A fire that ripped through parts of Chile's Easter Island last week has caused permanent damage to some of its iconic carved stone figures known as moai. The mayor of the island, locally known as Rapa Nui and formerly as Pedros Imans Pawa, said the high temperature of the forest fire accelerated the process through which the stone carving will eventually turn into sand. The damage is irreparable and immeasurable as well. The mayor blamed locals who raise cow and horses on the island and regularly burn grassland.
The Chilean island that lies in the middle of the Pacific Ocean has some 800 moais, half of which are inside the Rano Raraku volcano. The fire last week blazed through 104 acres and particularly affected an area inside the volcano where there are about 100 moais, around 20% of which have been damaged. Edmunds Poa said, "There are also some damaged structures outside the volcano." He said, "The work of avoiding accidents and fires involves a prevention plan that requires resources that we don't have."
FUNDAY News will help sharpen your English skills while keeping you informed about current international events. Tune into our other FUNDAY programs to learn more about the world's most important topics in English. Click the link below now to join FUNDAY for free. I'm Wade Lee, your host, and I'll see you next time.